This is Mete Yurtsever. Today, the Formula for Creating Value podcast reaches out to Tel Aviv. And my special guest is Global Innovation Manager at AB InBev, Amy Bianca Cohen Dagan. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you, Mete. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining. So, Amy, we met in May 2017 in Barcelona in International Beer Strategies Conference. I was a speaker from FS, and you were in business development for Weissbeerger, the beer tech company, revolutionizing draft beer sales. That time, FS had a strategic alliance with SAB Miller. Later on, AB InBev acquired both SAB Miller and your company. So today we swapped positions, sort of. You are on producer side, I'm on the professional services. Who would say that?
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, exactly. So, Amy, you studied law. You graduated with honors, and but how your roads crossed with Weissbeerger?
So this is an interesting question. Every time I have this conversation with my mom, she says that she doesn't understand how a lawyer became a bartender. So I'm still having to explain this today, but I think that it's quite a common path that happens with people in Israel specifically that are studying law. For me, actually, it was very different because I'd actually moved to Israel from South Africa, from Johannesburg, and actually I'd always planned to be a lawyer. So I actually went through my studies in Hebrew, which was not my first language. It's not my native language. And when I finished studying and I'd moved on to a law firm, I dealt with like mergers and acquisitions and corporate law. I actually realized after many years that actually this was not the path that I wanted to take, that it wasn't aligned with my personal kind of values in terms of what I think I bring to the table. And interestingly, I kind of started reaching out to the ecosystem. Israel's very, very well known for innovation, very strong ecosystem in terms of, patents per capita. I think we're the highest in the world today. And basically, I'd been at a conference while I was studying my second degree, kind of came up to this very strange looking stand that had like a draft beer stand of one beer tap and a little screen showing some numbers. And I was like, what is this interesting, strange creation? And I came to know of this very, very small startup of about 8 people in Tel Aviv, basically learning, trying to bring data to the beer industry. And that's actually how it started. From that point on, I think I basically just sent an email to the company and said, "Hey, I'm coming to work for you." And I pretty much came out like that, sat on a box, being interviewed by one of the co-founders in like a flow meter room, like an R&D room. And basically, like I say, the rest was history. So that was pretty much one of those things that, just kind of a luck and an opportunity and timing that just kind of came together.
Great. So as you mentioned, I mean, like Israel is one of the largest startup ecosystem in the world. I read an article actually. The guy was saying the country seems to be on a continuous adaptation mode when it comes to facing challenges, be it climate, political demographics, and everything. So creates a right environment for innovations. I don't know why this doesn't happen for Turkey, but we are pretty much in the same situation, let's say.
And it's definitely, it's a part of, it's a very deep ingrained part of the culture here. And I think you can really sense that even from a very young age. I think that's something, like you said, kind of adapting to challenging circumstances. If you look at kind of the politics and the history of the country, so it's something very much within the culture and within the DNA of the people here, and I think it's quite an amazing thing. And even just in the situation of COVID and seeing the adaptability and agility of companies to pivot their business strategy to basically deal with and address the new challenges was also kind of a good testament to seeing that. So very, very, very cool.
Great. So coming to on the business perspective, so the AB InBev acquisition. So in January 2018, Weissbeerger was sold to AB InBev, right? And how things have changed that time?
So it was actually just from the kind of behind the scenes perspective, it was a very interesting time for me. So I was actually kind of leading a big part of the deal from a due diligence perspective from the company. I had kind of the legal background. And, leading up to the acquisition, AB InBev had been one of our kind of the biggest strategic customer at the time. And it was something that was communicated in terms of, this is like a strategic partnership that we see, going in different directions. And, I think that there was really strong, good communication on the part of the leadership to share kind of that with the team, guys, this is something that could happen. So from our perspective, it was very, very exciting, very intense time. And I think before any kind of acquisition, there definitely like some concerns and some doubts and, how are things going to change? What's this company going to look like? What's the strategy going to look like? But I think, one of the clear things from the beginning was that, leadership, the AB InBev leadership had been, many times to visit and really worked in close kind of hand-in-hand partnership with us. So at Weissbeerger. So I think that, we knew that we were kind of going in with the right partners. We knew that we had the same values. So I think from that perspective, it was very, a good union and a really, really interesting experience. That was in terms of kind of leading up to the acquisition. And following the acquisition, also, I think I had a very unique perspective. I actually gave birth in the time when the company was acquired, pretty much in the same month. So I gave birth to, like I say, to 2 children. And when I came back from my maternity leave, after a couple of months, I actually was extremely pleasantly surprised, I would say, in terms of how brilliantly the company, Weissbeerger had managed to keep intact. In terms of the direction of the company, the vision of the company, and there was kind of a lot of freedom in that sense, freedom and independence. On the other hand, I think that there was, a lot was gained in terms of like focus and, focus in terms of like geographical coverage and product focus. And really, I do think that kind of we gained the best of both worlds from that perspective. So
great.
Yeah.
And then how you joined InBev crew?
So this is, I would say about a year ago, I started to kind of think, I'd been with Weissbeerger for about 4 years. I'm somebody who really is always constantly looking to challenge myself, constantly looking to learn and to grow. And I felt that, at that point that I'd kind of reached a certain, plateau in terms of, what I think I can contribute and get. And at that point, actually, which connects with the Weissbeerger story, AB InBev had started to acknowledge the strength of the ecosystem and the power of the technology here. And at that point, they'd kind of started to increase activities. So a couple of things happened. We actually opened a cyber team here. One of our global VPs was actually here and built up a team here of internal cyber team. Our VP of global architecture and data, who was the CTO of Weissbeerger, had moved on to AB InBev to actually lead the entire architecture and organization of data for the entire company. And then we started to build this team, which is the team that I'm a part of, the Global Tech Innovation Team, which basically deals with open innovation. So it was kind of a matter of, I would say kind of timing and good luck. And, me kind of looking for my next opportunity. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into maybe mobility or something else. I'm going to leave the beer industry. And I landed up sticking with it. Beer makes people happy, it brings people together. So it was a tough industry to leave.
Sure.
So yeah, that's pretty much the way it happened.
I know
you know.
Right. So great. Tell us a little bit about, let's say, the innovation approach of InBev. So every company claims that they innovate to satisfy customer needs, right? In a better way. But not all innovation faces the customer. So why does AB InBev innovate? I mean, or is there sort of an allocation of resources in between these, increasing the top line or increasing the bottom line?
So I think that's a great point. But truly, I think that, just to connect to what I said before about bringing people together, I think, the true mission and the dream of the company is to bring people together. Our tagline is bringing people together for a better world. So truly, people are at the center of everything that we do. So it's at the center of everything we do when it comes to innovation, when it comes to the core business. So I think it is more than let's say just a tagline from that point of view. but for sure, it's not only, to me, it's not only about satisfying customers' needs, but it's actually also about anticipating them, right? So one of the things that we talk about a lot is, if you hear our CEO, Carlos Brito, who talks about, staying ahead of the curve, right? And in order to stay ahead of the curve, we not only need to give them what they want today, we need to give them what they're going to want, and they may not know that they want today. So that is definitely something, and I think that innovation plays a huge part in that, and being able to anticipate and predict. And we talk about kind of analytics and AI and those type of things. And especially like if you look in today's constellation, we see consumer needs completely changing, right? So people are talking a lot more about health and wellness. People are celebrating a lot more in-home occasions, and there definitely is that need to adapt, and technology plays a huge part in that. But like to your point, a lot of innovation is also back end, right? So it's more like what you're talking about. If we look at the entire value chain, we see innovation as a part of that entire value chain. So we have huge opportunities to innovate on the agriculture side. Of course, we deal with grains and crops. So we do some amazing work around that, and that also helps to achieve some sustainability goals. Supporting farmers and things to that extent. It also plays a part in how we source. So there's a whole element of kind of procurement, and of course, one of the huge focus areas for us is also in the supply chain, right? Innovation in the supply chain, it has the power to actually, just to your point, to of course, in a cost efficiency perspective, right? Like optimization of process,
right?
And actually some interesting top line opportunities as well that I can't talk too much about, but from that point of view. And I think another element for us is always just looking at our kind of customer base. So we actually see the customer that you mentioned is the B2C, but actually a big part of our business, or the bigger part of our business, is the B2B base. So we're serving businesses, and in terms of just looking at innovation from a supply chain perspective, one of the huge pieces that we can always improve is service levels, and there's a lot around how we can improve kind of our service to our customers. So that's kind of to that. And we're constantly balancing. I wouldn't say there's a kind of an allocation between top line and bottom line. We definitely, depending on kind of the situation that we're dealing with, but we're definitely always, trying to find that balance between kind of more immediate or shorter term cost savings versus, again, staying ahead of the curve, thinking about what's that next big thing that's going to help to grow the company.
That's quite interesting. I mean, of course, InBev is the largest beer company, right? It's 1/3 of the beer global beer business, I think, belongs to.
That was post acquisition of SAB, and 1 in 4 beers today is
1 in 4 beers. Okay, all right. Yeah. So, but how do you how it is all these efforts are sort of coordinated? I mean, like, is there by topics? I mean, like, what is the focuses on? Is all these pockets that of interest that you just mentioned, or is it also some tools or incubation centers, or how things are, let's say, organized?
Cool. So like I mentioned, we see innovation very much as a core part of what we do, which actually means that we have multiple different teams working on innovation within the company. So we have teams, just to kind of give a broader high-level picture. So we actually have teams both on the global and the more local, what we call the zone level. And we have teams actually that are working both within the R&D and the solutions, which we call solutions organization, as well as actually in the functional areas. So we have, I would say, innovation arms kind of spread out across really, making sure that we get a hold of the different parts of the business, where typically different teams would cover different areas. So you kind of mentioned, which teams are doing what. So we have, different teams, let's say maybe covering different functional areas, or different, types of innovation or things like that. But it's definitely a challenge. So I think that, that's one of the big challenges for any big organization that's, innovating, to make sure that you don't duplicate efforts, which is always a big thing, so that requires a lot of kind of syncing, alignment, visibility.
Right.
And as a global team, we play a big part in that. And it also requires kind of that constant looking forward and saying, okay, how are we going to scale this? Because essentially, for innovation to really have an impact, we need to make sure that if we're testing something in a specific place, it actually has the ability to scale elsewhere. And that's another key component of what we do at the global team. So maybe just a word in terms of, I could obviously speak a bit more specifically to the team that I'm a part of. So what we're actually focused on is what we call open innovation. So we're looking more at, either partnering with external companies, mostly startups, for specific business needs and challenges. It could actually either look like a partnership or a pilot or a POC, obviously, with the end goal of having some kind of a commercial agreement. And it could also be a joint venture to that extent. And we actually do also have an element of build. So we have, you mentioned an incubator. So we actually have an incubator, which is fully internal, meaning employees of AB InBev propose their challenges or their business needs, the priorities as they see them. And they go through kind of a 13-week internal incubation process with industry leaders to actually build kind of products and MVP. So we have a bit of both, I would say.
That's interesting. I mean, let's say the internal one, the incubation center. And how do you call it?
This is the Beer Garage, which is the name of our team. The Beer Garage Incubator. Yeah.
So, and how the organization actually enables this to their employees? Do you have like free times to do your own projects, or like people? I mean, and when you talk about this, Beer Garage is based in Israel, right?
So Beer Garage team, our Beer Garage team is kind of split up into different teams, and the two main hubs are in Tel Aviv and in the Silicon Valley, actually in Mountain View, California.
And how this is sort of like sponsored or let's say backed up by the leadership? I mean.
So there's kind of like an open call to basically any of the different functions in the business to submit applications in terms of different challenges that they want to solve. There's, a selection process. Of course, they need to go through kind of the validation of the business idea, of if it's a need, if it's, feasible, viable to build. And then once they kind of go through that process, they actually have pretty much a full-time 13-week program where they kind of step aside from their day-to-day job. And really, really exceptional support from the team. We actually just recently, about a month and a half, 2 months ago, just held the pitch day where out of 11 projects, 7 projects are actually going to be continuing within the business, which means that they're basically then, pitching for sponsorship internally to continue to build their ventures. So super, super cool program.
Yeah, it's definitely. But okay, what are the motivations? I mean, like for the team members. I mean, if I have a great idea and InBev takes it and says, thank you, Michael. I mean, you've done a great job. It's a $100 million business, whatever. So is it like, how is it any option for the employee to sort of go out and then pursue this alone or in a group of team or something?
So it's very much on a case-by-case basis. But again, depending on kind of the investment, what it would look like afterwards, who's going to own the IP and things like that, it would be kind of a very, very much, dependent on a case-by-case basis.
I see. Okay.
But yeah.
So
just to mention kind of, to complete the full picture. So there are different innovation teams, and if you guys kind of get a chance to see the website, which is undergoing some changes, so hopefully will be updated soon. There are different teams working on kind of different areas. So just to mention Z-Tech, which is basically of the AB InBev family, they're actually focusing more on driving value for small and medium businesses, mostly in Latin America. So that's actually one of our strong innovation teams. ZX Ventures, which is our corporate venture arm. So they would be kind of the body to be investing, and we have a very, very close relationship with them. So one of the things that we could obviously do is when we see huge prospects and promise with one of the startups that we're working with, we can actually funnel that for investment opportunities. So we have that as well. And G-Tech, which is another very interesting team that's focusing more on the packaging and product innovation side. So lots of innovation, lots of exciting things.
Yes.
Mind-blowing.
And actually, who's aligning all these things? I mean, do you have a chief innovation officer or somebody? I mean, like who everybody reports to?
We do. His name is David Almeida. We also recently kind of went through some restructuring on the senior leadership just to really be able to enable that. And he's overseeing kind of all of that innovation piece. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. A lot of syncing and alignments and making sure, like I said, like everybody is has that visibility, knows what's going on.
Well, very, very, very exciting job, I mean, for him. So one thing before I forget about it, it's you mentioned about the third parties, the open innovation that you do, I mean, with other startups. And what is the mechanism for that? I mean, how do they come? Is it like, do they have a incubation center looking out? I mean, something like this, or?
So we typically work in, we like to call it a pull and a push. So the pull would be, we get some kind of a reach out or a need from one of our stakeholders that we're working closely. So it could be the global director of transportation, logistics. Hey, Amy, I have a problem, can't solve this. We need to find a better way to do that. And we would kind of get that reach and get that what we call a brief or problem definition. And then we would go kind of, having a stronghold on the ecosystem, we would then go and source for a solution for that specific problem. So that's more what we call kind of the pool. Also, the way that we do sourcing, I'll just say in general, is, obviously I'm talking specifically now about the Israeli ecosystem, but it would be similar elsewhere. Of course, we have, a lot of different partners in the ecosystem, if it's VCs, if it's other kind of innovation arms, and strong kind of networks, as well as CPG benchmarking. So we actually do have very strong relationships with other big kind of top CPGs in the ecosystem, and constantly doing that sharing and benchmarking. So really like a very collaborative environment here. So that's in terms of the pull. And then in terms of the push, we would sometimes come with interesting opportunities. So for example, I did an interview. Somebody had seen that interview and reached out to me and said, hey, I can see you're leading something at ABInBev. You mentioned something about supply chain optimization. I've got a company. This is what we do. And actually, we're running a pilot already. So, in terms of that, we also getting kind of reached out. In terms of the specific mechanism, not kind of a platform, there's something that we're talking about and working on. If it makes sense to have some kind of a platform. But I think we're pretty easy to reach.
Right.
So anyone that wants to get to us can get to us. We're pretty responsive. So from that perspective, so a pull and a push. To make sure that we're constantly also, on top of what are the industry trends. We're reading thought leadership. We're attending conferences. We're, again, making sure that we're on top of the next big thing.
Maybe now that you mentioned that, let's talk about this. I mean, do you have like a sort of an insight platform that you use to have this, to read these weak signals or to catch these weak signals?
So I would say we read multiple different sources, not one insight platform per se at all. We read kind of, the big consulting firms, the McKinseys and those kind of reports. When it comes to, like I said, it's mostly, I would say, more of a qualitative, discussions versus like a specific one platform that we're using to do this.
Okay.
So call it more intuition based.
All right. Best way. And actually, I thought about also like when we talk about open innovation, there are even you're using some third-party solutions like ICA for consumers or for any professionals, advertising professional or so on. You can go there and just drop an idea about, let's say, something new, a new feature of Stella Artois or a material for Stella Artois. So. And people can go there and submit their own, let's say, little ideas. And of course, this is on a very small scale. And this is something that local teams are dealing with it, or?
This is a great question. I would say it's more on the actual product innovation side. So,
right.
So where we're differentiated would be, our focus would be either the technology or the research. So we're either doing kind of the technology innovation, if there's some kind of technology product that would help in the packaging or in the product making itself, let's say, per se, or, if there's some kind of more research oriented requirement, let's say, to do like a joint venture with a company that would change the ingredients of the product. So we won't necessarily be doing the product itself, if that makes sense. That's not the type of innovation that we're doing.
Okay, all right.
But yes, I'm imagining that these are tools that the teams are working with.
Yeah, that's innovation topic is a very broad thing. I mean, actually, it's even sometimes when I think about it so deeply, it's senseless to talk about innovation. This is the business as usual. I mean, you have to improve things every time some need emerges, and then you try to address to it. So this is like the regular business, I mean, in a way.
And I agree with that. And it's interesting because we had a very similar kind of conversation with that this week. We were talking about, how do we become kind of more integrated into the core functions? And that's a huge point, especially for a corporate trying to innovate. I think when innovation teams see themselves as something completely separate, our ability to really impact and drive kind of buy-in from our functions, who are essentially the stakeholders, who are essentially the people that we're trying to help, and support in their work. I don't think it will be effective. And really, it's like you said, it's this mindset of innovation is a part of what we do, and it's not kind of a separate stream. And I think that's also one of the reasons why we build our teams the way that we build, is that we have innovation people who are kind of part of these core teams, and that's the mindset that we're trying to drive. And I think, one of our big challenges in our kind of anyone who's in an innovation position is, we can bring the best technology, but if you don't want to adopt it, like it has no meaning and no impact and means nothing. So that's a key component. What you
that's
mentioned.
exactly. I mean, like the mindset I'm trying to, let's say, advocate in a way in Turkey, whatever. So it's just this sort of diversity and just working together, this collectivity, sort of like design thinking principles overall. I think InBev does it again without naming it, but just following the obvious rules of it, I guess.
Yeah.
Yet there is an effort, and it has to be monitored. It has to be measured. How do you do that? I mean, like, what are the metrics for you?
So one of the key things that we do when we're setting up a pilot or a kind of a proof of concept or something like that, we always make sure to have success metrics. We have KPIs for every project that we do. We don't start a project without knowing what's the ultimate desired outcome. So that's the first way that we would be able to measure the project, to really make sure that the targets of the project are being achieved. On a personal kind of level, each of us has targets. ABInBev is a very result-oriented company, constantly driving us to make sure that we're on track and exactly where we should be. And in terms of, I think we also have this good, really good kind of always learning mindset. So we're also constantly monitoring ourselves. And I think that kind of self check-in is possibly even more important than this kind of external, hey, are you reaching your target? So we actually recently just did for the whole year, we took basically the pipeline of projects that we brought to the table. We have kind of different stage gates through the process. So, call it initial explore, late explore, proof of concept, et cetera, et cetera. So the different kind of, we use the lean innovation method. So to check that we're getting through that process. And what we did is we kind of did a root cause analysis on each of those different projects to understand kind of why things, let's say, didn't succeed, didn't go through to the next stage. So we're constantly monitoring ourselves, checking that we're not only, again, quantitatively meeting our targets, but also qualitatively to understand kind of how we can improve our cadence, improve maybe, visibility with other stakeholders, improve alignment, et cetera, et cetera.
Great. But I have a question, honestly. How is the attitude towards failure in InBev? I mean, once a team fails, how things are for them? I mean, really, emotionally, or let's say, in terms of their careers.
So I think that first of all, it's a tough situation to be in general. I think especially financially, the fact that like the whole economy has been kind of strongly affected by COVID and by the situation. I think that things are obviously being more tightly managed now, which makes sense. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that the business is not impacted. Actually, we just released our Q3 results and very fortunately had a much faster recovery than kind of any other peer out in the market.
Congrats.
But I think that in terms of, the mindset is more about, less about kind of the failure, more about like, what can I learn and take away from that experience to do better next time. And I think, that's totally dependent on your manager. I think, if you have a manager who is tolerant to that and understands, that you're still learning. But to me, it's less about, the result per se, but really kind of how I dealt with that let's call it that failure, what I took away from that, how I learned, how was the attitude, how did I take that criticism, and what can I take away from that and do better next time versus, seeing that as a failure.
Okay, thanks for the honest answer. Okay, so we come to then towards the end of our chat, and it's my signature question. What is Amy's formula for creating value, I would say?
Okay, so like I said to you before, this is a tough one. So, I think if I had to simmer it down, I think it's very hard. I think there are a lot of things that, that I strongly believe in, a lot of kind of opinions that I hold true. But I think that if I had to say kind of one or two small things, I think to understand the value that you bring to the table and to have a very honest conversation with yourself, because that's something that I think took me a couple of years. I think for a couple of years, and I'm still relatively, I would like to call it in the beginning of my career, I think that, for a couple of years, it took me some time to really have like an honest conversation with myself. What am I really good at? Where are my true strengths? And to grow from that and to understand where you add value. To have that kind of accounting of, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and an understanding that you don't have to be good at everything. And that's fine. Like if I'm going to be that person that is, a strong kind of connector, at building relationships, at opening the doors, at bringing in the opportunities, then that's the part that I need to play in the team. So I think, having kind of that understanding of yourself and being humble and curious. Like I think for me in my career, I've seen that, my big opportunities have come when I've been open to them and not, I think you do need to have some kind of direction. And, I am constantly doing this, like check with myself, hey, where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be? Is what I'm doing now going to lead me to where I want to be? I'm very focused, I'm very determined, very career oriented. But I think that you also have to have this kind of openness and true curiosity and humility to say, I don't know everything. And the more I'm open to learn, the more that's kind of going to open doors to opportunity. So I think that's the way to bring value because needs change, like we spoke about. You need to be agile and needs change. And to be able to bring value, you need to be open to bringing different value at different times and to different people. And yeah.
Great answer. So pretty much how I feel about it, I would say. And by the way, I'm 50, and that sort of search and let's say wondering never ends. So, what am I?
Good to know.
So you don't have to worry about settling it. Okay, Amy. So thank you very much. It was a great chat, and we learned a lot from you, I guess. And I will share with our audience, and also in Turkish. I will summarize this one in Turkish as well. Any preferred way people can reach you out and ask some questions if they have any, other than LinkedIn?
So LinkedIn is a great one for me. I'm super responsive. I spend some good time. It's a great way for me to actually reach out to a lot of companies through LinkedIn. So LinkedIn's a great way. We could share an email. Amy.Dagan at ABInBev.com. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best.
But now that I remembered, I mean, like before the conference, you saw that I was one of the speakers, and you reached out to me from LinkedIn first time, and we just agreed
exactly.
to. Yes,
exactly.
True.
Exactly. I truly spend really. I think that for me, like, it's also something that I've mastered. Like, you need to know how to reach out to people because, like, otherwise people won't respond to you. And LinkedIn is a very strong tool if you know how to reach out to people.
Exactly.
So that's, for example, something like just going back to what I was saying, like about the value that you bring. Like I've noticed that I'm good at reaching out to people.
Yes.
So like I might not be the best person in the team to have the second or third conversation. So I bring on the team member who needs to be in that conversation, but I can open the door. And I think that's kind of where you figure out what your value proposition is.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Amy.
You can cut a lot of that if you want.
Yes.
Mete, much appreciated, and I look forward to it and keep in touch. And yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks.